D. Mace Fingan and Donick 1025, 1063 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service, and we are proudly presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and David Janes here with you on a beautiful Wednesday. Willie will be here for a little bit before he heads off with the Nashville Predators. Their maiden voyage to Salt Lake City. I'm surprised that Willie Donick has a voice left after last night's wild and crazy Predators game, a 7-6 overtime win against the New York Islanders.
Well, if you're going to be bad, make it exciting.
That's exactly what I was going to say. This season has been a dud, as we all know. But don't go out with a whimper. Go out with a bang. And that's what the Predators did last night, coming back from 6-4 down in the final minutes of regulation. Here's an interesting note for you all. Tuesday marked just the fourth time in franchise history in which the Predators erased a multi-goal deficit within the final 3 minutes of regulation and won the game. Down 6-4 on a shorthanded goal. A controversial play leading to that shorthanded goal, I'll say. But the Predators, they would not die. Steven Stamkos, Michael Bunting tied the score. Fedor Svechkov with the overtime winner. So as I said, this season has been a major disappointment, but at least they're going out highly entertaining.
It was such a nice feeling to just have some fun. You know, that was just a fun hockey game. It's been so many. Todd Richards had a great quote in our pregame interview, as he's the acting head coach. So he does the pregame interview for the FanDuel Sports. And he said, sports can be so much fun when things are going well, and also so hard when things aren't going well. And getting through those tough nights is part of it. And so it's great that they were able to experience that last night as a team, just have a happy ending like that in such an exciting game. It's just, if you just dropped out of the sky and went to that game, you had to walk out of there going, man, that was a blast, unless you're an Islander fan.
Well, it was 6-4 after Scott Mayfield scored a shorthanded goal. Again, I call it a controversial play. That might be too strong, but was it Romanov high-sticked Ryan O'Reilly right after Jonathan Marchessault broke his stick on the power play. O'Reilly and Marchessault collide, springing the Islanders on this odd man rush shorthanded. And after Mayfield scored, normally I would just shut off the TV and say, well, they gave it their all. But for some reason, I stuck around last night. And I was like, I want to see how this game ends. And lo and behold, the Predators come back to win.
Well, I think you just had that vibe throughout the game that this is one of those games where you're liable to see just about anything. And just when you think it's going to go one way, it's going to go the other. But yeah, they overlooked a high stick, a pretty blatant high stick. And as you said, Romanov took two players out, and that led directly to the goal that made it 6-4. And so the Predators protested as long as they possibly could. They even got an unsportsmanlike penalty because they wouldn't stop yelling at the refs.
Steven Stamkos would not let it rest.
No.
Rightfully so.
Well,
understandably.
It brings up something that's been talked about a lot. You have a tool in replay where if you see some evidence. Now here are the two principles. This is why it's really tough to be an official. And I sympathize because I've used this line. You can't see or you can't call what you don't see. So if you have two officials and then two linesmen who huddled up and they said, look, the guy's nose is bleeding. Like there was evidence, like O'Reilly's cut on the nose because of this high stick. His helmet got knocked off. So there was evidence that this happened. And Ryan O'Reilly's an honest player. He's not going to say that this happened when it didn't. So you have a lot of evidence sitting there. But the officials conferred, and I can only conclude that they said, look, we didn't see it. So we can't call it. But the Predators are saying, well, look, if you're not sure, you can call a 4-minute high stick. You see blood, and then go to the monitor And if nothing happened, then fine. There's no penalty, no harm, no foul. But all they would have had to do is look one time, and it would have been very obvious to call a penalty there. So at the same time, I don't know what would have been called because a goal was scored, right? So if you get the high stick, does that wipe the goal away? I don't think so.
That's a good question.
I don't know what the rule is. That's a question for Elliot tomorrow.
I'm
So
not
it's
sure.
almost like the, making a 3-pointer and then going back at the break and say, well, that was
His foot was on the line.
Yeah, foot was on the line.
And
you can do that in basketball.
You can do that. Yeah. But I don't think by rule that you could have come back and blown the play dead.
Yeah, because the point was already scored.
I don't think there's a
sort of like
place for that.
Not pass interference. The goaltending in the championship game that you and I talked about, when it was a blatant goaltend, but then Florida comes out and make a 3-pointer.
Right.
So you can't go back, even if you go back and say, yeah, it was a goaltending. Do you wipe away Florida's points?
Yeah, and they could have gone the opposite, where they could have called goaltending, then looked at it. But if you don't call goaltending, you can't go back and look at it. So these are all the little nuances. But to their credit, the Predators then got, I think, a legit call right after that. Sometimes that's when you get a technical foul. As Avery Johnson said in a game I was watching him do, he goes, you can get a little love from the officials after they tee you up, right? Because they feel bad. And maybe he's right. So they called a call. So they end up scoring 2 goals to tie it up and send it to overtime.
What I thought about at the end of last night's game was it was a little tease of what could have been this season for the Nashville Predators. Now, the Predators aren't going to score 7 goals every game, but Steven Stamkos, 2 goals, 4 points. Jonathan Marchessault, 3 assists. Brady Shea, 3 assists. The top free agents signed last summer by Barry Trotz. It felt like if everything is working the way it should, this is what it could look like. And this season is lost. They've been eliminated from postseason contention for a couple of weeks now. They've really been out of it for much longer than that. But it gave you a little taste of what Predators fans would have hoped the season would have been. Steven Stamkos making a huge difference. Jonathan Marchessault making a huge difference. Brady Shea making a huge difference. So when that game ended and I looked at the score sheet, that's the first thing that came to mind for me.
Yeah, they had 10 points combined. That's the most that those three, the 3 big signings that happened in the first 15 minutes of free agency that everybody's talking about, that was their best combined game in terms of production by far. The thing about Stamkos, I think, let's put aside that the Predators at 5-on-5 have been abysmal, right? That's been the biggest problem of their game. They haven't scored enough and they've given up way too many. Their plus minuses, they would have some contenders at the Masters this week. They're under par a lot. But Stamkos, numbers wise, he's going to end the season in the ballpark of what I thought would be sufficient from him. He's got a lot of power play goals. He's been exactly what they hoped for there. And he's going to end up with, I don't know, some close to 30 goals. And I think before the season, that's one thing that, I was trying to temper some expectations. I don't think at this stage of his career, he should be expected to get 40 goals and 80 points anymore. But if he's going to be a weapon on the power play, score big goals like he did last night, to me, if you could bottle that up and take that for the next 2 or 3 seasons, I think that's realistic.
By the way, when we did our Predators questions ahead of the season, one of the questions I asked the 2 of you was how many goals Steven Stamkos would score. And we all said somewhere between 26 and 39. And he's at 27 with 4 games left in the season. So we all kind of predicted a drop-off in goal scoring from Steven Stamkos. 14 power play goals, as you said, Willie. We've come to expect that from Steven Stamkos. You know that no matter how old he gets, he's still going to be a threat on the power play. But coming out of last night's game, Gentry Estes wrote a column for the Tennessean with the headline, "Tumbles for Nashville Predators, Tennessee Titans, more similar than you think. And this is something that we've talked a lot about over the course of the season. And Gentry writes in part, quote, other than the shared timing, especially cruel for the city sports fans, these dueling declines for Nashville's most prominent pro franchises wouldn't seem to have much in common. Different circumstances, very different teams, very, very different sports. However, there are big picture similarities in how each got to this point. The Titans and Predators have each become examples of how bad it can get when a franchise fails to adequately draft, develop, and retain homegrown talent, and then resorts to spending extravagantly in free agency to make up for it. Gentry continues that the lavish spending in free agency for the Titans in 2024 got former Titans GM Rand Carthon fired. Highly doubtful it'll mean the same for Predators GM Barry Trotz. But for a coach turned GM, there will be good lessons to take from this season. Chief among them, free agency is best for supplementing, not nourishing a roster.
Yeah, and you're spot on. Well, he's spot on. And one, we've talked about this a lot, how, it just, for this moment, it seemed like this franchise, they're both on the same sort of plane. And it's not a good one. And you start to see the similarities. I know it's sort of different in the sense of, drafting a guy and, developing that guy, because hockey does it. They do it a different way. You go down to the minors for a while, you develop there, and they're drafting these guys so young. So it takes a few years unless you just pop right away. And we know there's only few guys that do that. But it takes you years, to actually get to a point where they're saying, okay, you're ready for the big league. Well, the NFL, it's quickly. We're putting you on the field, and we're going to know if you can play or not. And while they're different in that respect, what he pointed out in the article, they're the same, because neither team has been able to develop, draft, develop, and retain. No way. Either via trade, they traded these guys away, or they just didn't work out for the organization. But either way, both of these franchises find themselves in a position where once both of these franchises were, looked at as stock with talent, they're headed in the right direction, to almost being like, man, where is this team headed, or where is this organization headed? They went out and they did all of this, and those two things are similar, meaning free agency. They went out and did all of this, but even with that, they're still a bad team. So where do they go now?
Yeah, I agreed. I think there's a lot of good points that Gentry made in the article. Mm-hmm. The one difference that I would contest, I think, when he says, because I think the principle is very sound, that free agency should be to supplement a roster and not be your roster. Mm-hmm. I think there's been a lot of lessons learned over the years. Me being a New York Mets fan, I've seen that a few times with that. But you can't just buy a roster most of the time. It just doesn't work. But I would say that the Predators at the end of last year felt like they had a good team. I think we would all agree. Mm-hmm. They had a really good year. And I think they saw the big spending as a supplement and not, let's just remake our team and make up for stuff. So I think that is, I think that is a little different than the theme of the article, but this is where I think he made the best point on the Predators anyway, because I think that he's spot on the Titans. The Titans knew they had a black hole from 3 empty drafts. And like, well, there's only one thing we can do. Let's just spend our way and hope that we can be competitive. And it didn't work at all. The Predators, and this is a parallel with the Titans, they don't have a middle class in the roster. And he points out really, I think, with good detail, what has happened there.
Mm-hmm. So Gentry mentions that the Predators from 2016 to 2020 drafted 4 first-rounders none of whom are still with the franchise. Yaroslav Askarov, Philip Tomasino, Eli Tolvanen, and Dante Fabro. Gentry also mentioned some of the other recent, well, not so recent, draft picks that are no longer on the team, like Yakov Trenin and Tommy Novak and Alex Carrier, even Juuso Parssinen. This was what I thought was interesting. Gentry writes, quote, only one player the Predators drafted prior to 2020 was in the lineup Tuesday. That's Mark Del Gaizo. The Islanders, in comparison, had 9 of those players on the ice. But to your point, Willie,
and I don't know if I would be saying that the Islanders are the model franchise that you want to be following, because they're in big trouble right now. They're a mushy middle team that's on the downside too.
Yes.
But his point is taken.
Yes. He also writes to what you were referencing. At this moment, though, the Predators roster lacks a middle class. It's comprised of older veterans and hefty salaries in many cases, mixed with mostly unproven youngsters in need of more NHL seasoning. It'll take time for the future to come into focus, even when there are glimpses of hope in the present. And he mentions Fedor Svechkov, who scored the overtime winner last night. But that is a sound point. You've got the 30 plus, the 30-year-olds and plus, Philip Forsberg, UC Saros, Roman Josi, Steven Stamkos. You have the younger players like Fedor Svechkov, Zachary Leroux, who are getting their feet wet Matthew Wood, who are getting their feet wet in the NHL. But you don't have those 24, 25, 26-year-olds who have been in the league for a couple of years, who project to be the next generation of core players. That's what's missing from the Predators.
Well, the Titans still have the same thing, but it's not in respect to age. It's in respect to years, years you have invested in this game. Whereas they may be top heavy because of some of these free agent moves that, when it's supposed to be supplementing, they're trying to build their roster with. So these guys are on the older end when it talks about years played. And then they have a few young guys. As a matter of fact, I don't even think they have young guys.
The Titans?
Yeah, the Titans. So it's like they have these older guys and then these guys in the middle that may make the team this upcoming season, may not. But they don't have a farm system, in a sense, where we are drafting, developing, and retaining. They didn't got to the draft phase, but they haven't been able to get to the development phase.
Right. So, like there's, you could throw JC Latham in that mix, right?
Right.
Or Peter Skoronsky, younger players who are still on the come up.
Right. Who they hope
are
going to keep getting better and be worthy of a second contract.
Right.
That's
but they don't have those key contributors who are on that second contract.
Yes.
Right. Who are in their,
other than Jeffrey Simmons.
Jeffrey, yeah.
Anybody else?
I'm thinking, really, because
very few.
Because Nick Westbrook-Akine left. So guys that they draft,
that's what replenishes. That's what you do when you draft and develop. That's what they lack.
And that's what I said. They don't have the development part. And they draft you, but they don't develop you.
They haven't had success there. And for the Predators, if you go back, it's been a while since they really had a hit from the draft. You mentioned all those players that they've moved on from 2016 to 2020. None of those guys are lighting up the league. Now, they're all solid NHL players, right? And they've traded some of them. And we have yet to see what's going to happen from the results of those trades in the next couple of years. They do have a really young group that's rated fairly high, deeper pool, but putting it together, meshing that group with the older group is going to be the key. But I will say this about the drafts. Roman Josi, UC Saros, Philip Forsberg, who wasn't drafted by them, but he was traded for when he was 18, right? Those were big hits from young players. Josi and Saros were not first-round picks. They became star players, all-stars. It's been a long time since they hit on a pick of that caliber. They've drafted a lot of NHL players, but nobody that has really popped.
I think of a team like the Dallas Stars, because people point to the Dallas Stars as a team that has done an exceptional job of drafting. And they have players in all three of those classes, right? They have the older group, Jamie Benn, Matt Duchene, Tyler Seguin, now Mikael Granlund, right? They have the young up-and-comers who have already established themselves, like Wyatt Johnston and Maverick Bourque and Thomas Harley. But then they have that middle class, Jason Robertson, Rope Hintz, Miro Heiskanen. The Predators are missing that middle class, that, the mid-20s burgeoning stars. That's what they don't have. They have the top group and the bottom group, but they don't have the middle group, which is key to sustaining success in all sports. But we're talking about the NHL in this particular instance. David is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. David, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey, good morning, guys. Really enjoy the show. I got a quick question and comment for you. So when Barry was head coach, was he not let go because of some similar issues that were happening this season?
That's a better question for Willie. I wasn't here yet. What do you think, Willie?
Okay.
What do you say similar things? What's an example?
Like, well, obviously the record, but it seemed like some just overall performance, getting the best out of your veteran players, some issues like that.
Well, thanks
for the call, David.
He had been there for 15 years.
Yes,
he was there for a long time. I'll try to make it as quick as I can, but they won playoff series in 2011 and 2012. In 2013, you had the lockout, right, which shortened the season, and then they had a huge rash of injuries after Ryan Suter left, right, to be free agent. That really gutted that was a gut punch when he left. He was a core guy, and they didn't get any compensation for him. And so they had a bunch of injuries. They went south in 2013. They got the 4th pick in the draft. They traded for Philip Forsberg. And so that actually was not the worst thing that happened, right? That they were forced to start to retool. And then the following year, I still think they had a decent team. But what happened? Pekka Rinne got a really weird injury that it got infected. He got a virus or something in it. I can't remember all the terminology, but he missed 50
some sort
games.
of infection in his hip.
It was like an E. coli infection, and it was very serious. And he missed 51 games. And of course, he was everything in his prime at that point. And so that sort of sidetracked the whole season. And they just made a change after that. So I don't know that I would really draw much of a comparison between that team and this team.
615-737-1025. Your thoughts on the Predators' wild and crazy win last night against the Islanders, the similarities between the Titans and the Predators, which of those teams you have more confidence in of digging out of the holes they've dug for themselves this season. 615-737-1025. Chris Mason, Predators goaltender, former Predators goaltender, I should say, and current Predators television analyst, will join us coming up next. I also want to let all of you know to keep listening after Chris Mason, because I have an opportunity for you to win something. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063, The Game.
All right, let's talk Loan Pronto. LoanPronto.com is the website you want to be thinking about here. And they want you to know that interest rates have plummeted. And we know we've got a lot of stressful financial situations out there with the upheaval going on, inflation, higher costs, and whatnot. But if you own a home, there's a way out if some of the costs are building up on you. And it's using your home's equity. You can refi out of a high rate and do a home improvement project or just pay some bills, and you can make it happen in a matter of days through Loan Pronto. So take advantage of this opportunity. Get tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands if that's what you need, and you can pay off the bills you need to pay and be in a better monthly situation. The average homeowner cuts their monthly bills by $1,000 through this program at loanpronto.com. So give them a call if you like. If you're a phone person, 615-499-5780, or go to loanpronto.com. That's 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781, subject to lender approval, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
Want to win tickets to a Preds game? Then be listening to Robbie and Rexroad tomorrow morning for Preds Pick to Click. All you have to do is guess a Preds goal scorer, and if they put the puck in the back of the net, you win. Be listening tomorrow morning for the Cue to Call on Robbie and Rexroad. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Chris Mason will join us in just a couple of moments. I don't know if either of you saw this, but Budweiser Canada delivered commemorative beer cans to the 28 goaltenders who never gave up a goal to Alex Ovechkin. Curtis Joseph tweeted a picture of himself holding this special beer that Budweiser sent to all the goalies Budweiser sent all the goalies who faced Alex Ovechkin, but never gave up a goal to Alex Ovechkin, who of course just broke the record. Chris Mason, unfortunately, did not get a beer because Chris Mason gave up 2 goals to Alex Ovechkin.
Wow. So who was the only guy?
There were, I believe, 28.
So you had to play a game.
You had to play
against
a game
Ovechkin.
against Ovechkin.
It was 28 that didn't give up a goal, or just one?
28. There are
Okay.
28 different goaltenders who faced Alex Ovechkin, who never gave up a goal. Kevin Lankinen, by the way, on that list. Kevin Lankinen.
And Ovi may still get him before it's all over.
Yes,
He's on the list for now. But I guess he gets the beer.
He gets the beer.
Right now, he gets the beer.
Exactly.
Yes.
But I wonder who's played the most games. Does it list who's played the most games without giving up a goal?
Well, I think it's done by shots on net. So Mike Condon, who's been a journeyman goaltender.
Just around for a
He's
long
been
time.
getting beat down, huh?
I believe it says here, if I can read it, it's very small print. Condon has stopped 18 Alex Ovechkin shots. Never gave up a goal.
He never gave up a goal.
But we are joined.
And that's the most.
Yes, we are joined by Chris Mason.
So if you play against him enough, he's going to get you.
Chris Mason, Predators television analyst. Mace, we were just talking about the fact that Budweiser sent out commemorative beers to the 28 goalies who never scored on Alex Ovechkin. Unfortunately, you did not get one of those beers.
No, I did not. And Willie and Jacob Underwood pointed out that I gave up 2, and they actually knew when they were. And I forgot. So
why they got to bring up old stuff, Mace?
Yeah, I know, right? That was funny though. Some of the comments by the guys that they all did videos and stuff. It was really well done. They did a good job there. So that was really cool. Good marketing thing.
Did you know? Budweiser. I'm sure you knew this, that 183 goalies have given up a goal to Alex Ovechkin. Did you know that you were the 11th different goalie? You were number 11 on this list of 183 in chronological order. Did you know that?
I did know that. Willie and Underwood told me last night, so I actually just found that out last night.
Some luminaries on this list before you.
Again, bringing up old stuff.
Cam Ward, not to be confused with the Miami quarterback. Roberto Luongo, Ed Belfour, Martin Brodeur, Martin Biron, Henrik Lundqvist, right ahead of you. Chris Osgood, right behind you.
Wow, there you go.
Some good company.
You took the league by storm.
So it wasn't just you.
Yeah. You know what's funny though? This is what I love about speaking of that kind of stuff is Olaf Kolzig, if you remember him.
Yes. Old Capitals.
He reached out he reached out to Ovechkin, texted him and just said, "Hey, congratulations. All these things." And he goes, and Ovechkin replied back, "Well, thank you so much for being a part of it." And he's like, Kolzig texted him back and said, "Easy, buddy. I think I only gave up 1 against you," or something like that. He goes, "Yeah, but you assisted on 5 of my goals." And he was like, how did you even know that? It's just, that's the kind of, importance I think all this is. Like, he knew that Kolzig assisted on 5 of his goals, and, he's been going for this record for a long time. And it's honestly, it's incredible. And in sports, as D Mace knows, those records that stand, I think it was 31 years. Nobody thought it could ever be broken. And for him to, obviously everybody knew how good he was, but at the age he is now, 39, to still be getting the kind of production that he is, 3rd in the league in goals. I mean, it's just incredible. And it was such a great ceremony, and Wayne Gretzky was awesome, and just such a big proponent and happy.
Did we lose Mace?
Did we lose Mace? I don't hear Mace. We'll endeavor to get Chris Mason back on the line.
And that is why, when Ovi broke the record. Yeah,
hi, Chris.
Yes, you're back.
Hey, sorry, guys.
No. What I was getting ready to say was that's why, because you talked about the specialness of the whole moment and what it actually takes to break a record like that many didn't think could be broken. And inevitably, when that happens, they start comparing, this record to that record. And my thing is, it's hard to compare, but one thing we can say, it's hard to definitively say which one is harder than. But what we all know is that it's hard to do it, and it takes longevity and it takes consistency to do what many thought could never be done. To break that record, it took him, playing a lot, being dedicated to the sport, and showing up each and every night. You can't break a record like that when you show up half the time.
Yeah, exactly. And, I see some of these sports talk shows going on, and they're like, well, what record's better? Is it Ovechkin or is it LeBron James breaking Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's record? Like, who cares? They're both like amazing records. I don't know why we have to always pit that. And it's impossible to do, like sport to sport, breaking those kind of records. It's just appreciate the being able to witness history, because those types of records, you're not, those are, once in a generation that you get to witness something like that. So it was really cool. And the specialness of it is, and now people are saying, he could get to 1,000 goals, which is, possible the way he's scoring now. And they're saying that record will never be broken, but who knows, maybe 31 years from now, we got some guy that's created in a lab scoring 100 goals a season. He does it in 20 years. So no, it was awesome. And it was good for the game. It's been a good year for hockey this year with the Four Nations and obviously the Ovechkin chase. And I think the best thing about that is he's on a team that's a great story as well. So it was perfect for this year.
Chris, we were talking about the Predators' win last night, a wild and wacky 7-6 overtime win against the New York Islanders. The Predators come back from 6-4 down late to tie the game. Fedor Svechkov wins the game in overtime. And I was telling Willie and Derek that when I was looking at the score sheet after the game, I noticed Steven Stamkos, 2 goals and 4 points, Jonathan Marchessault, 3 assists, Brady Shea, 3 assists. And I said it was like a little taste of what Predators fans were hoping this season would be like. Those top 3 free agents being key contributors in big wins. I know that this season is over. It will be completely over next week. A week from today is the season finale. But to have those players, even in these moments, step up and deliver, what can that do for a group as a hard season comes to an end?
Well, I just think if you listen to Bruno and Richie and the players, the whole point, obviously it doesn't matter in the standings. It's probably good now. They're going to, be in the mix for a top pick. But for them, I think even for the players, for them to produce and to at least end the season kind of feeling good about your game, obviously this whole season, I think for everybody is going to, leave a bad taste in the players' mouth, especially the guys that you mentioned that had big expectations. And that's a good thing. But I think at least if you can finish strong, you can kind of just, end the season and say, wow, what a year. But you're feeling good about your game now. And then looking forward, say that's what we can do. This is how we can play. We know we can play like this. I think this year, and D Mason, you guys know, the mental side of it is bigger than anything, I think. And it just became such a mental hurdle for these guys to get over all the issues and the lack of chemistry at the beginning. And, you'd play a couple good games and then you'd lose 5 and you couldn't score. And this is a team that, quite frankly, it's still at this point, even after the Four Nations, I'm just shocked at the lack of offense with the talent that they have. But you see those games where they're able to break out. That's what they should be able to do a lot more consistently. So I think at least if you finish strong, you could say, you go with a little bit of smiles, you got the bad taste in your mouth, and then everyone's going to have a really determined off season, because that's what happens when you don't have a good season as a team and as an individual. That off season becomes a lot more important for your preparation, because as an athlete, and especially with these guys that have won, they're going to do everything in their power to make darn sure that it doesn't happen again. So I hope they can finish, feeling good, scoring some goals, and then get after it in the off season. We'll see what Barry Trotz does. He's got a lot of draft capital, a lot of cap space. See if he, dips his toes into the free agent market. But it'll be, a big off season for a lot of these players to kind of get their, game in order and be ready to go at the start of next season.
Chris Mason is with us. Mason, I think a lot of people who maybe watched a piece of one game or another, maybe they don't have too much of a feel for Matthew Wood just yet. You've seen him now for a couple of games. He hasn't had any points yet. He looks like he's made a few subtle plays where you say, okay, I see why he's a first round pick. So give me your thoughts. What would you say if somebody who hasn't watched the game yet said, how does Matthew Wood look?
Well, at first glance, when I just first saw him, I'm like, oh my God, this guy is a kid. And, but the thing with him is he's been young at every level that he's played. He was really young in junior, had a lot of success, went to college as a younger player, an underage. A lot of guys will wait till they're 19, 20 before they leave junior and go play. He's coming out after 3 years as a 20-year-old. He's a big guy. He's kind of a little bit slender, I would say. But he was not intimidated out there. I really, the things that I was most impressed was with his poise with the puck, his ability to protect it down low. It's a whole different ballgame when you come from junior or college and you go to the National Hockey League, the size, the speed, the efficiency of the players in the game. And he just seemed to be able to, handle whatever situation, I think. And, a lot of good things. He's got a good shot. You've seen him take a couple of shots, and I've watched him in practice. He's got an NHL shot already. It's just a matter of, getting the puck. And, he got to play with Bunting and O'Reilly a little bit. So I would like to see him play with a little more skill, although McCarron and Cole Smith, I thought were good because you're going to play the majority of your shifts in the offensive zone. So I really like him. It's a small sample size, but I think really an excellent start for him, and he's just soaking it all up, and he's only going to get better. But good stuff. He's got some good intangibles.
Chris Mason, Predators television analyst, joining us on D Mace Vingen and on it. Chris, great stuff as always, man. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, guys, and thanks for bringing up the Ovechkin stuff. That kind of hurt my feelings.
Hey, you were a part of history, my friend.
Oh, good point. No, that makes
you were a
better.
part of history. Yeah, 183 goalies can say.
We need to find out if you got the win the night that he scored on you when he was a rookie in 05.
I hope y'all got
yeah, there you go.
Let's go back and find that.
I will find that during the break, and I will share it.
I can't remember the other one.
I don't remember the other one either.
Y'all don't need to remember. It didn't happen.
I will look it up.
It didn't happen.
Chris,
doesn't even remember it.
Chris, keep listening. I will share that with you on the other side.
Okay, thanks. And they were sick goals, by the way.
Chris Mason joining us on
Nothing
the program.
he could have done about it.
No, absolutely not. Thanks, Chris. We'll talk soon.
See you guys.
615-737-1025. I did promise a giveaway, which we will do coming up next. 615-737-1025. And let me tell you to tune into 94.9 The Fan tonight as the Nashville Sounds take on Memphis. Pregame begins at 6:20 and the first pitch is at 6:35. Coverage also available on the Game Nashville app and at theGameNashville.com. Sounds baseball on 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks and Family Leisure.
All right, let's talk F&M Bank. Banking made easy on purpose. On Friday, we will take it to the bank, even though we're going to crown a champion. We're going to crown a champion on Friday, and it's not me. Oh, man, I thought we had it. But somebody in here is about to raise a banner, and F&M Bank will be on the banner. No question about it. F&M Bank does a great job. Banking made easy on purpose. They want to make your financial life simpler. And isn't that a great goal to have? You don't want to be stressing about your finances. Your business means more to them. They've got 20 locations in our listening area. Just find the nearest one to you, myfmbank.com. They've got the Smart Swipe feature that I've been telling you about where they round up and you save money. They've got great features for business owners, especially small businesses. Look into that. And anything in between, wherever you are in your financial life, they've got the motto, banking made easy on purpose. So tell them we sent you and go to myfmbank.com. We take it to the bank again on Friday. We'll crown the champion for the season. Member FDIC.
Hey, win an exclusive Jason Aldean experience. Tune in, text in the keyword Jason, Jason, to 615-737-1025 and receive a link to sign up for a chance to win all-inclusive tickets to the Eurostone Club at Bridgestone Arena to see Jason Aldean, plus also a chance to win $1,000 cash. By the way, that's not the giveaway, which is coming up in just a second. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. By the way, during the break, I looked up the dates of the goals allowed by Chris Mason to Alex Ovechkin. December 7th, 2005, in a 5-2 win by the Predators against the Washington Capitals. November 14th, 2010, a 6-4 loss to the Capitals by the Atlanta Thrashers.
No, that don't count. That don't count.
You got to go way back.
Yeah, that don't count.
So Mace got the win, much like Ilya Sorokin, right, who had probably the perfect day. He will forever be the trivia question: who gave up Alex Ovechkin's record-setting goal?
And a friend of Alex Ovechkin as well.
Right. And he got the win. It was the only goal he gave up. They won 4-1. So Mace got the win against Ovechkin.
That's all that matters.
He's 1-1.
So he's 1-1
That's all that
games
matters.
that Ovechkin scored against.
Ovechkin has scored 3 goals in games started by Chris Mason, but one of them was an empty netter, so that doesn't count. That doesn't count.
We don't even need
Mason.
to bring that up.
And he also, when Mace was playing for the Thrashers, at one point just absolutely just pile drove him into the goal. and Mace said that he was, that they were probably not as sensitive to the spotter, the concussion protocols and stuff, but he said if they had it, they might have had some effect there.
He wouldn't have finished.
He rammed into him big time.
He saw some stars.
And that can be found on YouTube, by the way. He also had a similar motion on Hal Gill. Just ran him over at one point.
And now look at them. They're the best of
He's a
friends.
tank.
Exactly.
Chucking bags wherever they go.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's all about
This will be the
game.
first bag chuck in Utah.
Oh.
Coming up. This will be a
Is
ceremonial
fun?
Is
first
this going to be a
chuck.
special one?
I don't know. I hadn't thought about that until this moment.
But remember,
I do have
Hal
my bag
Gill-
chucker shirt packed in my bag.
Hal Gill has made a point that in Utah, the bars aren't open that late, right?
This is a very sensitive subject for Hal Gill right here. He's very concerned.
Got to make your own bar.
He's very concerned. And I don't know if we've really done our homework but I'll have to let you guys know tomorrow on how it plays
I'm just
out.
imagining Hal Gill walking the streets of Salt Lake City trying to open locked doors. Open up
you guys
the bar!
Let me in! Let me in! You guys open? Somebody's there. But here's the fallback plan, though. The thing is, if you could just survive a couple days at Salt Lake, the next stop is Vegas.
Yeah.
Stuff will be open late at night in Vegas. There
So
will be
prepare-
compensation.
This is the preparation to Vegas, huh? This is the preparation.
It's a good way.
This is a
good-
pre-party.
Yes,
It's a good way.
Pre-party. Nice.
Yes. We all
The
remember.
detox.
We all remember pre-gaming. According to visitsaltlake.com, bars may serve all types of alcohol from 10 a.m. until 12:59 a.m.
Oh,
Taverns may sell beer from 10 a.m. until 12:59 a.m. Restaurants can serve alcohol from 11:30 a.m. to 11:59 p.m. during weekdays and from 10:30 a.m. to 11:59 p.m. on weekends.
so he good. He good.
So I feel like by rule, there's got to be some places that choose to stay open. They're allowed to stay open.
And
Maybe Hal got some bad info.
yeah, but that's
Right, there's hope.
But that's
Based
the
on
norm.
what you're
Yes,
reading, that's hope.
the
There's
norm.
hope.
There's hope.
That's the law.
He
So
just
he
can't-
should find a
He
place.
can't have the bender to end all benders in Utah. The bars aren't open that late.
Right.
But you will need to report back with your findings once you get to Salt Lake City.
You need to tell them to chill in Salt Lake because the next stop, oh yeah,
Vegas.
Vegas, baby.
Talk about two completely different places, Salt Lake City and Las Vegas. 615-737-1025. Speaking of that number, if you are caller number 4 right now at 615-737-1025, you will win a pair of tickets. I'm sorry, not a pair of tickets, a family 4-pack of tickets to see the Nashville Sounds take on the Memphis Redbirds at First Horizon Park tomorrow. So a family 4-pack of tickets to see the Sounds play the Redbirds tomorrow at First Horizon Park. To caller number 4 at 615-737-1025. Jonathan Hutton from Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow will join us coming up next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025, 1063, The Game.
He made that catch.
All right, let's talk Lead Company. 615-567-1000 or leadcompany.com. League Company is the proud sponsor of our Nashville Predators coverage on the radio. And let me tell you, it was a fun night at Bridgestone Arena last night. 7-6 win. Let's hope for more fun on this final road trip of the season at Utah, at Vegas, and see if Nashville can end up on a high note. So, League Company, what are they about? They've been around since 1944, taking care of your home and the things that make it run properly, your air conditioning system, your heating system, your plumbing and electrical systems. They have a program called the Home Maintenance Plan where they give you the year-round coverage on these 4 systems, annual checkups. You pay a small monthly fee, and when it's time for the recommendations to lead to repairs, you get discounts on those repairs. It's a great program. Home Maintenance Plan. Just go to leecompany.com for the details or call 615-567-1000. And look, you got a crisis, you got an issue, maintenance, general, home, or at work. That phone number is still good. 615-567-1000 or leecompany.com.
D. Mace, Finnegan, and Donick 1025, 1063 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. And we are proudly presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you, joined as we are every Wednesday at noon by our friend Jonathan Hutton from Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow on Outkick. So, Hutton, your partner in crime the other day, Chad Withrow, had a take about how the Titans framed their decision to cancel their private workout with Shedeur Sanders. And for those of you who missed it, Jim Wyatt tweeted it out and at the end said, quote, "The Titans have seen 4 years of game film, scouted multiple games, and have now attended a pro day they described as very impressive." Do you share Chad's what's the word I'm looking for? Consternation, perhaps, regarding the way that this has been framed?
I love the Vingan vocabulary, by the way.
I also like alliteration. Chad's consternation.
Good to be with you guys. Look, Chad's not wrong here. Also, this is the Titans' way of saying, don't worry about the private workout. We didn't even bring our head coach to the pro day. Reading into it, if you are an NFL franchise and you're about to draft your franchise quarterback, if you love a quarterback, you want to spend as much as you possibly can on the time window that you have with that player, especially at quarterback, especially with the number 1 pick. So with all of that in mind, they've exhausted all of their time that they can. I think they can Zoom, but all of the time that they can in person with Cam Ward. They chose not to do that with Shedeur Sanders. There's no reason to try to fake out everybody and not spend time with the player that you are allocated. If you're the Tennessee Titans, turning over every stone to make sure you know the player, you get to know the player. You can watch all the film in the world. All I hear about at the combine is you want to be there on the field to see the ball come off the hand. Again, the play caller for the offense was not at the pro day. That's really all that needed to be said.
We are going to talk about this a little bit later, but I want to get your opinion on it as well. So Albert Breer of Sports Illustrated, he wrote this. I believe he also said it on his podcast, that it would take a quote unquote historic offer to move the Titans to trade the number 1 overall pick and pass on Cam Ward. In your mind, what would constitute an historic offer for the number 1 pick?
Future first-round picks, plural. And historic for Amy Adams-Strunk to be patient if you make that trade, because other people will be making those selections if not. So that's important to note here. Along with the trade has to come patience from ownership. Beyond that, I don't know what historic means from this angle. Historic for Cleveland at number 2 to move up 1 spot, or historic meaning a team like Pittsburgh at 21 is just unloading the bank to move up all the way to number 1. I need to know the context there. And I think they're throwing that out because we heard that last year with the historic offers that were reported that the Giants were making to try to move up and draft Drake May. If you know the quarterback is your guy, I don't think there's an offer that you want to absolutely consider. Consider what Cincinnati did. They turned down a boatload of future first-round picks for that Joe Burrow spot. I mean, they knew they had their guy. If it's true that they're still begging for a big-time offer, to me, that means the other teams are probably thinking the same thing that the Titans are. This quarterback group is good, not great.
But I don't even think it's the quarterback group. I just think it's the group as a whole. Yeah, the draft as a whole. Because
I mean, Mace, you're right. We've been talking about 4 players really the entire time.
Yeah,
that's it.
And you can't have a draft that can be potentially littered with potential moves at the top if the talent isn't robust at the top, and it's not. So when you look at this, and I think this is where I'm trying to figure this out, and because if Titan fans or anyone else out there believe that Cam Ward isn't worthy of the number 1 pick, because he wouldn't have been worthy of a top 5 pick or a top 3 pick last year or the year before that because of the quarterbacks and some of the other guys outside of it. What makes you think the guys behind him would have been even higher? I beg to argue that there would only be one person in the top, possibly 5, and that's Hunter. Anybody else, and that's the stretch in the last 2 years. But anybody else, I don't think you're talking about them as a potential number 1 pick. So if that's the case, I don't get the don't draft Cam, move out, because even if you were trying to move out, everybody else knows that this draft isn't robust. So why do I need to move up?
Well, it basically it comes down to there's the draft and there's the quarterback draft.
Yeah.
And some teams are extra desperate. Look, the player I would want is Travis Hunter, personally, in this draft. Look, I mean, it's not a great quarterback class. I mean, so you mentioned the players in general. J.C. Latham would be the number 1 tackle again in this draft. Like that, take that into consideration. Like that, there's that topic too. We could see upwards of 10 pass rushers. I'm counting defensive tackle in this, 10 plus in the first round. This is a defensive first round coming up. And that from the quarterback perspective, are you going to spin the haul, or are we going to see like the Kenny Pickett year, where Pickett went 20th to Pittsburgh, and that was the only first round quarterback we saw? Mace, it's peculiar because the coverage of the draft is very cyclical. It starts in November or so, and that's where everybody was talking about how this is a terrible quarterback class. And now all of a sudden, Mel Kiper's hyping up Shedeur Sanders as his top player. We've got Cam Ward, who's unequivocally worthy of a number 1 pick. I mean, it's very back to promoting the show that is the NFL draft for the National Football League. And we've done this, I mean, as a collective media and fan base, with 4 players being discussed this year. That's crazy to me. Yeah, it's Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, Cam Ward, and Shedeur Sanders. And, I mean, that's really it. You don't hear much debate about anything else. Even the Tech McMillan comment about how he doesn't even like football or like watching football on TV.
That was crazy.
That went under the radar in this draft coverage. It's crazy, and it's not even being dominated by Shedeur Sanders. It's been dominated really by Cleveland and New York, holding those two of the top 3 picks behind the Titans. The Titans aren't even getting much discussion from what I've watched, because everyone knows they're going Cam Ward in all these mocks. I think that's a foregone conclusion, because they're not going to get a deal that's just going to blow their socks off. And if you need the quarterback, you don't wait on the quarterback. You take the quarterback. I understand that line of thinking, but if you knew in December that this was not the year for the quarterback group, and it was reported, I believe, that the Titans weren't really high on this quarterback class. Well, as they started to get around Cam Ward, it was around the combine, right before free agency, that they really got a hold of the path they wanted to go, which seems to be the rookie path. There's just no way that this regime can't start developing a quarterback right now, because they were supposed to start that last year with Will Levis.
Well, with that being said, and you're right, they need to draft a guy that they can develop and make their franchise quarterback. But when you say that, the first thing people say is, well, they don't have a team, strong enough to develop a young quarterback at this time. Well, I would tend to say, or they're not doing anything to help the young quarterback out. Well, I would beg to differ, because to me, they are. They went out and got Moore. They went out and got Zeitler. You're talking about revamping or moving around an offensive line to try to make it a place for the new quarterback can sit in the pocket and deliver the football and play quarterback the way it needs to be played. So when people say, well, they're not doing anything, yes, they are. They're beefing up the one thing they need to beef up in order for the quarterback to have some sort of success in development, and that's the offensive line.
Totally agree. They're going to be very young at wide receiver, it looks like. And look, their pick in the second round is going to be a valuable pick to move back on if they want to. They can gain more picks and more draft capital that way. I still think there's an opportunity there for teams to want to move up and chase runs on players on day 2. They can still take the quarterback at number 1 and end up with, there's a group of about 50 or so players right in the heart of the middle of the first round to the start of the third, where everyone's kind of graded right there at the same number or same level. That's good for the Titans. You can move back and still get the same type of value on your board. And this team has a ton of holes. They need more picks than what they have. That's the pick that I would move because they don't have a third rounder. It is a long wait from their second round pick to their fourth round pick.
Jonathan Hutton is with us, and Hutton, you read my mind because I was going to ask you the percentage chance that they end up with either a third round pick or an extra second. And that is a thought that I really didn't comprehend. But when you're at the top of the second round, right, and everybody takes a break after that first night, and everybody recalibrates and looks around at who's left, that you're right. That might be the pick where they are able to get what they're looking for, and that's more picks.
And that's where we could see the next stage of quarterback, because you've got ahead of the Titans, because it's a snake deal. They've got Cleveland and New York. Kuiper did a 2-round mock, and he's got quarterbacks going there at 33 and 34. Take that for what it's worth. Point being, if one of those teams doesn't go quarterback, you could potentially have the Titans that want to do that. I don't see them trying to move up. They need more picks. And look, this is it's scarce at offensive tackle. Not great at corner. Tight end is too heavy on the top, and then there's the rest. Running back is very deep, and if you get the best of the group after Genty, maybe that's another position to look at. And wide receiver, I mean, Willie, I mean, they need a lot of spots. I'm not naming all of them right there. They need a lot of spots to fill. I think they have to make a move with that second round pick because they need the value of this draft. If the value of the draft is low at the top, imagine what it's like in the 6th and 7th rounds of this draft. Not good.
Okay, Hut, would you, because you're right, and Willie has been talking about this, and we all have been talking about this, them having to, especially this year, get back into that third round. And the only way I believe there is a possibility of them getting back in the third round is if they give up they put Will Levis in the package with one of their 5th rounders this year for a third this year, and they're giving up Will Levis the 5th this year and a 5th or 6th next year. I mean, would you take that deal? If someone said, give me Will Levis, one of your 5ths, I'll give you my 3rd, and you give me a 6th next year.
I mean, I think it's like Jeffrey Simmons for a 3rd round pick. Like, let's just throw that out there. I mean, Landry wasn't drawing anything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Will Levis.
But once you get into the draft, how desperate teams are for what? Young quarterbacks. And Will Levis is still in that age range where you can, there could still be some development in there.
But who needs who needs Will Levis?
Hey, I can say who doesn't.
If the Titans don't need him, if the Titans are willing to trade,
it only takes one team.
That's fair. But I mean, every team passed on him 2 years ago,
including the Titans.
Yeah.
At least once.
You get what I'm saying? Like,
no, I get it.
Look, I think the teams that are hungry for quarterbacks are moving up. Like, what does Pittsburgh do? New Orleans, real quick, New Orleans is in a real interesting spot of this draft. They picked 9th. The reports were in December and January, this is a draft that's going to have 11 to 13 players with legitimate first-round grades in some draft rooms. That's remarkable.
The Saints, by the way, are the betting favorite to land Shedeur Sanders right now.
Okay. See, I think if Shedeur Sanders makes it to number 9, I think the Saints are in a prime spot to trade back a couple of spots because, and they could still end up with Shedeur because there's a gap between like pick 9 and pick 14, 15, where the Falcons are, where you may not see quarterback off the board. And corners should go there. That's a prime spot for New Orleans. Pass rush right there. We're going to see running back potentially with Genty if Chicago doesn't take him. there are individuals in this draft that are more valuable on the boards than Shedeur Sanders. Point being, they pick 9th. If he makes it past pick 9, Atlanta at 15 is where teams are going to target to move up. The Falcons have 3 picks that are in rounds 1 through 5, rounds 1 through 6. Excuse me. The top 6 rounds, they have 3 selections in this draft. They are begging to move back. And if Sanders moves past pick 9, I think that's kind of the range because they want to get ahead of Pittsburgh. But Pittsburgh could move up as well to around that range. New Orleans, though, is in a prime spot to move back and still get the player that they potentially want. And the old saying goes, if you want the quarterback, take the quarterback. And they've got a first-time head coach in New Orleans now that would be telling and dictating that. But I mean, again, guys, like where is Sanders in last year's draft? He's the 7th quarterback, potentially the 8th, because it was Rattler who was the next guy off the board, and it's New Orleans who has Rattler. So, I mean, this is a peculiar spot for teams that could potentially be way over drafting players where the board is saying, we've got 13 legitimate first-round grades. Sanders isn't one of them. If that's true, Sanders is not one of them. Do you guys agree with that?
Okay. Because I think it's easy to say where he wouldn't have been because he wasn't in that draft.
Yeah,
just like we didn't think Bo Nix would get drafted that high, or
it's
Michael
anonymous
Penix.
Scouts who are saying this. That's true.
So if Shedeur Sanders is in last year's draft,
yeah,
maybe a team chooses to move up to get him in that top 10. Maybe they don't get Michael Penix. Maybe they don't get Bo Nix.
He could go to the Raiders.
Exactly.
The Raiders
so
team left out, but he's still the 7th quarterback.
Exactly. But that's why I say, it's hard. It's unfair to say I put him in that draft just with the quarterbacks in regards to the quarterbacks. I'm not talking about the draft in general.
I get okay. I see what you're saying. I'm just stacking the talent. Like I'm comparing the quarterbacks and where he would go slot wise based on what scouts are saying anonymously. Okay. That's all.
Uh-huh.
Bo Nix. Going into the draft last year, I didn't think Bo Nix was a first-round pick. There's always a surprise team like Atlanta that drafts Michael Penix Jr.
I don't think I thought McCarthy was a first-round pick, at least in my mind.
Not as high as he went.
By the day of the draft, I think you knew he was going to get there, but still.
But 6 of the top 12 last year, and I think that's indicative of teams knowing what was coming this year. Personally, I think that they were grading this year's crop versus waiting another year because teams, like Atlanta, saw Penix Jr. and they went ahead and made that, or after signing Cousins to that mega deal before he even took a snap. I think we're going to see some surprises. I think the surprise could be Shedeur falls, or Jackson Dart is drafted ahead of him, like something crazy like that.
Jonathan Hutton from Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow joining us on D-Mays, Vingan, and Donick as he does every Wednesday. Hutton, great stuff. We'll chat next week.
Hey, always enjoy this, guys. And for the record, I'm assuming that you guys agree that if the head coach and play caller doesn't go to the pro day, that's a sign they're not selecting him.
Pretty much so. I think that's the.
I would go for Travis Hunter, by the way.
To quote one of my favorite rom-coms, he's just not that into you.
Basically,
I mean, it was, man, it's a head scratcher to me. Hey, thank you, guys.
Of course. Jonathan Hutton joining us on the program, 615-737-1025. I do want to pass along a sad note. This was shared during Jonathan Hutton. Ray Shero, who worked for the Predators front office, has died. He was 62 years old. Ray Shero, who was an assistant GM for the Predators from 1998 through 2006, before becoming the GM of the Penguins. He was the GM of the Penguins when they won the Stanley Cup in 2009, if I recall correctly.
Correct.
Also was the GM of the New Jersey Devils, had been working currently as a senior advisor to GM Bill Guerin for the Minnesota Wild. The Wild announced 20 minutes ago that Ray Shero has died at 62.
Oh, that is just terrible news to hear. Ray Shero, you always remember that first group of people for the Predators, and Ray Shero was in that group. Of course, his father, Fred Shero, was famous for coaching Terry Crisp and the Broad Street Bullies teams, the mid-'70s. So the Shero family is like a royal family in hockey for sure. But Ray was an up-and-comer under David Poile, and I learned a lot from Ray Shero. I'm shocked to hear this. I didn't know anything was wrong or anything like that. So that hits hard right there. I can remember a lot of interviews with Ray Shero as I was a young broadcaster, really learning the game. And he was tremendous in that role as the understudy, but also watching the game and pointing things out to a new fan base.
So the NHL has announced that Ray Shero, former Predators assistant GM of the original franchise, starting in 1998, worked for the Predators until 2006, went on to be a GM in a couple of other places. Ray Shero has died at the age of 62. 615-737-1025. As we mentioned with Jonathan Hutton, Albert Breer says it would take a quote-unquote historic offer to move the Titans to trade the number 1 pick and pass on Cam Ward. What would constitute an historic offer? We will discuss that next. Willie is off to Salt Lake City. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063, The Game.
your choices are Cam Ward, the quarterback out of Miami, or trading with the New York Giants. Very important. You're only falling to pick 3. We know that matters a lot in this draft, given the players at the top of the draft. And you are also picking up in the process a 2026 first and a 2025 second. There's no real historical examples that are exactly analogous to this. I was looking at all the top first round trades. The Vic trade came to mind more recently, the Bryce Young trade, but that was to move up from all the way from pick 9 to pick 1. So they picked up a bit more in the process. So you could still get likely, definitely one of Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, and you're getting a second rounder, and you're getting a future first, or do you stay put and take Cam Ward?
And that is tough because I think the Giants being a team that could very easily be picking in the top 10 next year. Theoretically, they'd have a rookie quarterback starting. Well, I guess no, Russell Wilson might be the starter for at least most of the year. That is tough. But I think if I am the Titans, I have a chance to get a quarterback who I think is on a trajectory to be a top 12 quarterback in the league. I think he has that ability. I think he has that talent. He needs to button up some of the drifting in his footwork. He needs to cut down on some of the reckless habits, some of the hero ball, but he's a very loose, instinctive passer. He can be accurate, throws with natural rhythm. I think with the talent and the intangibles and the way that this Titans roster is built, and the fact that we just haven't had a quarterback in so long, I'm going to stick and pick. I'm going to take Cam Ward. I'm going to pass on the trade. The Giants are desperate, but I think we're desperate in Tennessee to get the quarterback right, and I think that could be Cam Ward.
That was Dane Brugler on Mina Kimes' podcast, by the way. The beast has been unleashed. Dane Brugler's 2025 NFL Draft Guide, known as The Beast, was released today at The Athletic. We will dig into that, I'm sure, over the next couple of weeks. So remember, I think it was last week, we played a clip from Mina Kimes' podcast where she did a similar exercise with Field Yates. So she did it again with Dane Brugler. So the choices for the Titans at number 1 were you can either take Cam Ward or you can accept this trade proposal from the Giants. And you wrote it down, Derek, so tell me if I have it correct. That you move down to 3, you pick up a first-round pick next year and a second-round pick this year. And Dane Brugler decided to stick with Cam Ward. Now, after the explanation you just heard from Dane Brugler, Mina Kimes chimed in and said, I bet it was hard for you to pass on that potential trade offer. This was how Dane Brugler responded.
The Titans are talking about, because I'm sure the Giants are at least throwing out scenarios saying, we'll give you this, this, and this. And it's something that the Titans have to talk about amongst in their war room, amongst their brain trust, and say, okay, well, what is our avenue to a quarterback? Are we just going to forward scout to next year and say, let's hope there's a quarterback there? Will Levis is a fine player, but he has not done enough in the last 2 years to say, I'm going to be a top 15 quarterback in the NFL. So without having a true avenue to a quarterback, that's what would scare me away from going away from Cam Ward. And I don't love the other quarterbacks enough in this draft to just say, well, we'll get quarterback too, whether that's Shedeur or Jackson Dart or whoever. It would be very tough to pass on that offer, but I'm going to take the quarterback. And I feel like, all right, we've got the most exciting quarterback in Tennessee that we, since I don't know who, McNair. I guess Vince Young was there, but this gives us at least a future at the best or the most important position on the roster.
So that was Dane Brugler's explanation for taking Cam Ward over the proposed trade from Mina Kimes. So again, move down to 3, pick up a first-round pick next year and an extra second-round pick this year. Let's start with these 2 questions, Derek Mason. If you were asked that same question, which one would you take? And what was your response? What is your response to Dane Brugler's reasoning for going with Cam Ward instead of taking that trade?
Man, you're looking at the trade and because this is assuming that the Giants are moving up to take Cam Ward.
Yes. More than likely.
Yeah, more than likely. I would say no. I wouldn't take the deal for this reason, and I think Dan Brugler right?
Brugler.
Brugler.
Yes.
BR. Yeah,
Brugler.
Yeah.
Dane Brugler.
Yeah. I think his reasoning I agree with. That sentiment is felt with me is if you have scouted him and you say that this is our next franchise quarterback, he's going to be the guy that leads us, regardless of what else is going. That's the guy. We are picking him. If indeed you believe that to be true, I'm with Dan. Don't hope, because you're in a position now to draft the guy that you like and you believe that can be your franchise quarterback. You're in that position right now. You may not be in that position next year, and you can't afford to say, well, we can wait till next year and see if we're in that position. One, the quarterback crop may not be as good. It may just be another one or two guys. And then you may not be in that position based on your record to draft one of those guys. And then further that, isn't the goal to retain picks rather than give picks up? Because next year, if you find yourself in a position where you got to draft a quarterback, but you're not high enough to draft maybe one of the 2 or 3 guys, what do you have to do? Give up picks to move up. And you may have to end up giving up more than what you received last year. So to me, the logic is, if you feel that Cam Ward's the guy, draft him now. I'm not trying to hope and pray. I'm not playing the stock market, hoping and praying. No, I want something that I know right now in my mind that is tangible now. I want to now. I'm gonna draft him. I mean, I'm not gonna hope and wish that next year I'm in a position to draft that quarterback.
All right, so I will play devil's advocate here. So again, the proposed trade from Mina Kimes that she asked Dane Brugler on her podcast. The Titans move down from 1 to 3 with the Giants, pick up a first-round pick next year and an extra second-round pick this year. So that means that the Titans would have 34 from the Giants and 35. So we've talked a lot about, well, that 35, that's an important pick. Should they take a receiver? Should they take an edge rusher? Well, if you have that extra second-round pick, you have consecutive picks, you can take one of each. You can take an edge rusher or a receiver if you want to. You don't have to choose between one or the other. And as Dane Brugler mentions in that cut, the Giants may be just as bad next season. Now, I don't know how many wins Russell Wilson adds to their win total, but it wouldn't shock me if the Giants were picking in the top 10 again next year. So you take the risk of passing on Cam Ward, but you may get another first-round pick that's in the top 10. Plus, you get consecutive early second-round picks this year. You don't have a third-round pick. You can knock out 2 very important positions with those consecutive picks. So I can see why people might be tantalized by that trade. That's just me playing devil's advocate as to why I would consider making that trade if I were the Titans.
And I would come back bird in the hand or 2 in the bush. Which one? I got what I got now. Now I know what I have now. I can't hope to grab the 2 that are in the bush. I may get one. I may not get either. So the Titans are in a position, and it's unfortunate. It really is. Because as an organization, you never want to be in a position where you don't have wiggle room, where you don't have an opportunity to reach for a pick. The Titans did enough reaching, okay? They've reached so much that they had to have an arm replacement, okay? That's how much they've been reaching.
They're not Stretch Armstrong.
Exactly. Absolutely. And they're not part of Marvel, okay, comic books.
Trust me, when I was a kid, I had Stretch Armstrongs, and man, I tried to pull those arms as far as I could go. I snapped a couple of Stretch Armstrongs. They do not stretch that far.
Exactly. So that was the Titans. They stretched for individuals, whether it be through the draft or free agency, and they had to get an arm replacement. They can't afford to do that anymore, okay? So, again, this goes back to, if the Titans believe he is that guy, he's a franchise quarterback. He doesn't need to be an elite quarterback. He's a franchise quarterback. If you see him as that now with the potential of becoming more than that, or his floor is a franchise quarterback, then take him now. Take him, because you can't afford to say, well, I'm going to skip over him. I'm going to draft this guy, and I'm going to hope next year or in the second round, I'm going to find me some guys because they need more impact players than they need anything else. They need guys that can come in and impact immediately, because they're not in a place where, well, we can let this, we can let the whole draft take a year off basically to develop. No, you've had that opportunity. It's not afforded to you anymore. So everything you do from here on out, just like me when I was in school, I messed around that whole first semester. I didn't have no wiggle room that second. They were going to kick my ass out of school. I was on academic probation. Okay, I ain't had no wiggle room. So every step that I made was calculated. It was like, I got to get this work done. I have no room for error, no margin for error. That's the Tennessee Titans right now. They have no room for error. So if they believe he's their guy, draft him.
615-737-1025. So let's pretend that Mina Kimes is asking you the same question she asked Dane Brugler in her mock draft on her podcast. You're the Titans. Your choices are, you have a binary choice. You can take Cam Ward with the number 1 overall pick, or you could trade with the Giants, move down to 3, pick up a first-round pick next year and a second-round pick this year. Which one are you taking? 615-737-1025. We will get your reaction on the other side. Also, I want to tell you that 1025 The Game and Green River Whiskey have teamed up to give away tickets to see Lainey Wilson at Bridgestone Arena in the all-inclusive Eurostone Club on Thursday, October 2nd. Tune in to Chase and Big Joe tomorrow during the 9 a.m. hour for the keyword to text in for your chance to win tickets. Green River Whiskey, sit back, relax, and bourbon. Green River Distilling Company, Owensboro, Kentucky. Alcohol volume varies by product. Please drink responsibly. D-Mace, Fingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 the game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, Billy off to Salt Lake City Predators and Utah Hockey Club tomorrow. The Predators' first trip to Utah. This week's Nationals Best Deal is from 12 Stones Crossing Golf Club in Goodlettsville. They offer 18 championship holes spanning over 6,800 yards with the meandering Madison Creek at its centerpiece. Get half off a $50 gift card now while supplies last at thegamenashville.com/deals. Okay, so this is the question that I have for all of you. At 615-737-1025, our phone and text lines, as always, are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We played a clip from Mina Kimes' podcast with Dane Brugler of The Athletic. And what Mina Kimes does, she did this with Field Yates as well of ESPN, is she goes pick by pick, and she gives her guest 2 choices for each pick. So with Dane Brugler, her choices were take Cam Ward or trade down to 3 with the Giants. You get the 3 pick, you get the number 3 pick, obviously. You get a first-round pick next year and an extra second-round pick this year. The Giants have the second-round pick right ahead of the Titans. So the Titans would have consecutive picks at the top of the second round. And I wanted to know what all of you think of that. 615-737-1025. One texter says, trade to 3 and then try to trade in the 8 range and then start drafting. One texter says, Cam Ward, that trade is straight up disrespectful. Another texter says, only an idiot, in this case, the Titans, would refuse that kind of trade with the Giants. The draft this year sucks, not just for quarterback, but most other positions as well. Get what you can and build up your capital for next year. Trey is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Trey, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey guys, how y'all doing?
Good.
Hey, I would do it. I would trade back and I would try to get somebody else. Because simple fact, right? A month and a half ago, they was dogging this young man, talking about he was running for his life in the back of the end zone. He couldn't read coverages. And then 2 weeks later, they were saying that he was Tyrod Taylor. Now they're trying to clump him with the great legend Steve Air McNair from my home state. No. Trade back and get some more picks, and we'll have to figure out the quarterback situation because I don't trust it. And y'all have a good day. Thank you.
Thanks, Trey. And Andy has a text that I think leads into what point I was going to make. So if you take this hypothetical trade for Mina Kimes, again, move down to 3, pick up a first next year and an extra second this year. You're punting on the quarterback position this season. Andy texts in and says, so with a better offensive line and trading to build your defense, drafting Travis Hunter, you have a better offensive line, better receivers. Theoretically, I guess if Hunter can also play receivers, better defense. Can we not make it one more year with Will Levis? And that's what probably is going to happen if you make this hypothetical trade. One texter said, curious as to why we're not looking for a veteran quarterback in free agency. Well, who's left?
Yeah.
You're not signing Aaron Rodgers. I mean, I think, does Joe Flacco have a job?
Not yet. But
right. But like, do you really want that? Like, if you do this trade, you're going to see a lot more Will Levis, or you're going to see a lot of Brandon Allen. And that is an admission. That would be an admission by the Tennessee Titans that 2025 is probably going to be just as bad as 2024. Now, you hope that puts you in a position that you're in right now, drafting at the top of the draft, and you can continue to build. We talked about the Davis Mills path a couple of weeks ago, what the Texans did, starting Davis Mills for a couple of years, 2 bad seasons. I think it was 3 actually, but he started for 2 of them, if I recall correctly, which led to CJ Stroud. And it's worked out, right, for the Houston Texans, but it doesn't always work out. So I think your point, Derek, is, trust me, there are a lot of people out there who study the game, who believe that Cam Ward is not a number 1 overall pick type of prospect. I mentioned Dane Brugler, who was in that podcast with Mina Kimes. The Beast came out today over at The Athletic. It's a great resource. Dane Brugler has Cam Ward as his number 1 overall quarterback prospect, but has Cam Ward as his 13th overall prospect in the draft. So that's something that people always point out, right? We talked about it the other day. How can the Titans justify using the number 1 overall pick on a prospect who Dane Brugler says is the 13th best prospect in the NFL? You hear a lot of that. So, but as you said, there is also risk in passing on Cam Ward because you don't know when you're going to have the opportunity to draft this type of quarterback again. You have to keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, listen, whether he's one, first time, let me address, I think it was Andy's.
Andy texted asking about
Cam, about Shedeur. I mean,
about Will
Hunter.
Levis.
Moving back, Will Levis, you don't want to go. Yeah, you don't want to go through this whole Will Levis thing again.
Does anybody really want that?
No, nobody wants
that.
Do
you really want to watch Will Levis play football again? No. We all lived through it. It stunk. It was hard to watch. There was there was sort of like a rubbernecking type of experience. Like you're on the highway and there's a car accident and you always like to slow down, right? To see what's going on. You turn your head a little bit. That's what watching Will Levis was like last year. You're waiting for the car wreck. And do you really, I mean, and trust me, I got a kick out of some of the decisions that he made last year. You could only help but laugh. But do you really want to experience that again? Do you really want to live through the Will Levis experience again?
I don't think nobody wants to live through that again. Now, they may be forced to live through it. I don't know. I don't even think the Titans want to live through it. But here again, because you said number 1 and you're moving to number 3, and everyone is just assuming, okay, just zeroing in, and this is not picking on Andy, but just zeroing in on this question, because I know there are a lot of other people that think like this. You move down to 3. Who says Cleveland won't take Travis Hunter? I'm not touching Abdul Carter. The whole injury thing has taken him off my first round board. It has, at least top 10 board. It has. Now, he may turn out to be a great player, and I get that. It happens. But I'm not in a position as a franchise to be drafting guys that have medical issues. I'm not. I can't do it. I can't afford to do it. So I'm taking them off my board. Who's to say Cleveland does it? Because they need a guy like Travis Hunter. They need a receiver. They need another corner. I know they have I think Newsome, he's still with them. Damn good corner. But they can use a Travis Hunter type player.
Yes, Greg Newsome still with the Browns.
So they need a Travis Hunter type of player. Who's to say the Browns won't draft him? Now, you hope that Hunter would get to number 3. Now he's at 9. Now he's no longer at number 3. Now you sit at that spot. And if you're smart, you're not drafting Abdul Carter. No other team, I don't think another team's going to make another move with you because they're probably seeing the same thing that you are seeing, and they were only going to move up to get Travis Hunter, but Travis Hunter was second. I say all of that to say this. Listen, whether you believe Cam Ward is the 13th best prospect or the 9th best prospect or the 10th or the 8th.
Would you like to know the prospects who are listed ahead of Cam Ward, according to Dane Brugler? Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, Ashton Genty, Mason Graham, Jalen Walker, Will Campbell, Armand Membo, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Tyler Warren, Shamar Stewart, Mike Green, Colston Loveland, and Tet McMillan. Those are the prospects, regardless of position.
And I would take Tet McMillan off my list. He has already admitted he doesn't like watching film. He doesn't like it. I'm taking him. He's moved down. Now I can move him. See, that's what I don't get either. Something like that is a red flag to me, but nobody points it out. But had that been Shedeur, it would have been like, oh my goodness. I don't care what position you play. If you tell me you don't like to watch film, man, I can't. I may have to pass on you. Somebody that's equal to you in talent, but loves to watch film. I need to draft that guy as opposed to you. So you move down. Cam Ward, you move up. But either way, if you still believe that he's the 9th best prospect in a prospect pool of over 200 people, and you say he's the 9th, but the best quarterback, take him. Take him. What you're trying to do is, because essentially you're still saying he's a franchise he's a franchise player. He's a good player, a very good player. You're still saying that. So if that is indeed the case, draft him. The Titans are not in a place where they can pass up good players. I don't care where they're drafting them at. They need a quarterback. He's the number one quarterback on the board. It's not like they're saying, well, he's the number one quarterback, but he's the 40th best player, or he's not a first-round talent. They're not saying that. They're not even saying he's in the bottom half of the first round.
By the way, in terms of quarterbacks, Dane Brugler has Cam Ward with a first-round grade. He's the only one with a true first-round grade. Shedeur Sanders, a first to second-round grade. Jackson Dart, Tyler Shuck with second-round grades. Jalen Milroe with a second to third-round grade. Quinn Ewers with a third-round grade.
People are, listen, and I get why they're doing it, because it's the number one pick. If the Titans had the number 2 pick, this wouldn't be the talk.
Shedeur Sanders, by
because
the way, quarterback
2
on Dane Brugler's Beast. Quarterback 2, 34th ranked overall prospect.
So if he was a 34th overall prospect, but the number 1 quarterback, yeah, we're not drafting you. But the guy is still a top 10 prospect amongst all of the other prospects out there. He's still a top 10 prospect at a position that you need, like more than anything. Draft the guy if you have him as a franchise quarterback. Draft him. If you feel, draft him. You can't afford to pass up good players. And sometimes I think the Titans fans think this team can afford to pass up good players.
615-737-1025. Let's explore that point coming up next. 615-737-1025 will also continue to take your reaction. It's time for the 4th annual 615 Open Charity Golf Tournament. Cromwell Media, along with partners Fox 17, Outfront Media, and Social Indoor, are proud to announce we will be back at Hermitage Golf Course on Thursday, May 29th, to make a difference while having a great time. You can join us and a few guest media members, athletes, and musicians as we raise money for Folds of Honor. Donations will go to provide life-changing scholarships to families of America's fallen or disabled military and first responders. Sign up to play or sponsor at 615open.com. D. Mace Finn Ginendonic, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. And we are proudly presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Willie Donick getting ready to take off with the Nashville Predators. Their final road trip of the season. They head to Salt Lake City, Utah for the first time. Predators and the Utah Hockey Club tomorrow, an 8 o'clock puck drop, a 7 o'clock pregame right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. So we're talking about trade scenarios. And Derek, you just said something interesting right before we went to break. And correct me if I'm wrong in how I'm paraphrasing it. You said that Titans fans think that the Titans are in a position that they can pass on good players. And Cameron on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHunting.com. And I know what I'm doing here.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I am revving up Derek Mason. He's like one of those old action figures with the little gear on the back. And I'm just spinning it up here. And I'm just going to
I'm that old?
No, I did not say that.
We're not saying that, but
I mean,
if the shoe fits.
I referenced Stretch Armstrong earlier. That dates me a little bit. But I'm just going to turn
wind
that
him up
gear,
and let him go.
wind him up and let him go. I'm just going to read this text from Cameron, and then I'm just going to take a step back from the microphone. I might have to get like a SWAT shield.
And I didn't even read the text.
All right. Cameron on our text line says, you're passing on better players by drafting Ward. This is not rocket science. This is the most nonsensical argument to overdraft a player I can imagine. Derek keeps saying you can't afford to pass up good players, so you should draft Ward. But by drafting Ward, you're literally passing on 12 better players, according to Dane Brugler. Just a completely nonsensical argument. I'm turning off my microphone. I did it a little bit early there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to turn off my microphone and just step away and protect myself from what's about to happen.
Again, you don't want to be in this position where you're the number one pick. Nobody truly wants to be in that position because that means your franchise has failed in that particular year. But it tends to work out for some. It doesn't for others. I just hope that it works out for the Tennessee Titans. Now, the notion of, well, if you draft, Cam Ward, then you're passing up X amount of good players. Well, frankly, this league is run by quarterbacks. So when the league is ran by quarterbacks, then when you have an opportunity to draft a quarterback, you draft him. Now, I'm not saying reaching and a guy is a projected late first round or second round and you're reaching to the number one pick. No. That's not what you would be foolish to do that. Unless you knew something somebody else didn't know and you transported yourself into the future and you saw what was going on. But beside that, no. What I'm saying is this. If you look at just combine all of these mock whatever that the reputable people have put together, on average, he's probably, 8th, 9th, somewhere around there.
So remember,
prospects.
Right. So yesterday, I referenced this on the show at ESPN.com. ESPN's 4 top NFL draft analysts, Mel Kiper Jr., Field Yates, Matt Miller, and Jordan Reed. They have a consensus big board where ESPN takes their rankings of certain prospects, averages them out. Cam Ward had an average among those 4 draft analysts, had an average of 8.8, which made him the 9th best prospect when averaging everybody's grades. I believe Kiper and Yates had him at 6. I think it was Matt Miller.
The outlier was Matt Miller.
Matt Miller had him at 14, and I believe Reed had him at 8. But that's to your larger point. Any of these lists that you read, Cam Ward is somewhere in the 8 to 12 range in terms of top overall prospects, regardless of position. So I'm looking at Dane Brugler's list, his top 100. I'm just looking at positions. So he's got Travis Hunter. He has him listed as a cornerback, cornerback 1. Abdul Carter, edge 1. Ashton Genty, running back 1. Mason Graham, DT 1. Jalen Walker, edge 2. Will Campbell, OT 1. Armand Membo, OT 2. Tyler Warren, tight end 1. Shamar Stewart, edge 3. Mike Green, edge 4. Colston Loveland, tight end 2, Ted McMillan, wide receiver 1, then Cam Ward, quarterback 1.
Okay, so you got basically one cornerback.
You have one cornerback. You have 4 edge rushers.
4 edge.
Abdul Carter.
Uh-huh.
I just lost Abdul Carter, Jalen Walker,
Uh-huh.
Shamar Stewart, and Mike Green. So you have one cornerback,
Mm-hmm.
4 edge rushers,
Mm-hmm.
a running back
Mm-hmm.
in Ashton Genty, a receiver in
Mhm.
Ted McMillan, 2 tight ends
Mm-hmm.
in Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland, and 2 offensive tackles, Will
Mhm.
Campbell and Armand Membo. I guess you also have a defensive tackle in Mason Graham as well.
Okay.
That should be 12.
So all of these guys you put, but on average, he's a 8. He's slotted at the he's slotted as the 8th best prospect in this year's draft, and the number 1 by a wide margin prospect when it comes to quarterback.
Correct.
And then you look at some of these other guys, they're either 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 in their respective positions in regards to how they're gonna
Shador
grade them.
Sanders, in terms of overall
Mm-hmm.
prospects, was in the 30s on this list.
And he's the 2nd ranked quarterback.
Correct.
So again, when you say
34 to be precise.
yeah, so when you say, well, you're drafting him and you're passing up other players, yeah, there's a potential of you passing up other players, but you got the guy at the position that you need the most, and he's still a top 10 player, the number 1 player at his position by a wide margin.
He's
and
clearly
the
best
and it's
quarterback
not
in
like
this group.
he's the best quarterback, but he's ranked, 15th, 16th, 17th in the whole prospect pool. No, he's still a top 8 guy. So again, I say this franchise isn't in the position, because again, you move down to 3, what if Cleveland takes Travis Hunter? Are you going to take a guy with a red flag? And the whole fan base has already talked about, don't draft injured guys. Don't draft injured guys. But at 3, there's an injured guy sitting right there, the number 1 guy at his position. Are you then going to say, no, I'm going to take the number 2 guy at that position or the number 3 guy at that position? No, you're not. Okay? If I'm the Titans, I'm not. So again, I am not passing up an opportunity to draft a franchise quarterback if that's what I think about him, because he's still a top 8 pick. I don't think some of y'all understand how, maybe because y'all have not been in that position ever, but I don't understand how being the 8th best prospect in a prospect pool of over 200 and some individuals, and you're the number 1 prospect at your respective position, how is that a bad thing? How is that a guy I can't draft? I don't understand that. And again, Titan fans, y'all, some of you, and I wholeheartedly understand. And when I say that, I mean it from the heart. I understand why y'all are in the position that y'all are in, or y'all thinking, because of this franchise put y'all in that position, because of some of the picks, because of the last 2.5 years. I get that part. But that doesn't say, well, if that's the case, I really don't trust what the franchise is doing and this and that. That doesn't say, well, I can't draft Cam Ward. He's still the 8th best prospect in a prospect pool of over 200, 300 people.
Let me ask you this question. I just pulled up Dane Brugler's top 100 prospects from his draft guide last year.
Mm-hmm.
Jaden Daniels, quarterback 3,
Mm-hmm.
the 8th overall prospect. He was what, the 2nd overall pick?
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious if Titans fans would be saying the same things about Jaden Daniels if we were in this position a year ago, because we didn't know that Jaden Daniels was going to have the season that he did with Washington. It came out of nowhere. He was fabulous, but I don't think anybody expected that.
Jaden
Daniels was the 8th best prospect overall by Dane Brugler last year. Quarterback 3, Caleb Williams number 1, Drake May number 2.
When you look at Jaden Daniels, his college stats, because I know people are looking at what he did in the NFL, and he was the Heisman Trophy winner. I get all that. But it's not like Jayden Daniels was just tearing up the world prior to that, okay? Like really, he wasn't tearing up the world prior to that, okay? Arizona State, 17 touchdowns, 2,900 yards. That's his first year. Second year, I think he got hurt, missed half of the season, majority of the season. Third year, 2,300 yards, 10 touchdowns. First year at LSU, 17 touchdowns, 2,900 yards. Last year, which was his final year, which was last year.
He won the
year
Heisman.
before. He won a Heisman, 3,800 yards, 40 touchdowns, and he had his rushing yards. So it ain't like he was tearing up the world. He had a superb senior season that ended with a Heisman Trophy in his hand. And it ended with a national championship. Cam Ward follows that same path. It ended with him being runner-up to the Heisman Trophy. And did his team win that? No, his team didn't. And they wasn't even, they were there for a while. But no, they didn't even make it. So, again, when I look at Cam Ward, is he Jayden Daniels? I don't know if he's going to be Jayden Daniels. His college stat says he can be Jayden Daniels. And the way he lifted up his team says he can potentially be Jayden Daniels. But we didn't know Jayden Daniels was Jayden Daniels until he was Jayden Daniels last season. And he wasn't the number one prospect last year. He's a third-ranked quarterback. Titans fans, if he was a third-ranked quarterback this year, or would you have drafted him last year? I know a bunch of y'all saying, yes, I would have drafted him. Well, y'all saying that really because you have the last memory of him is being in a playoff game this season.
Ben on our text line says if people would have known what Jayden Daniels would be in the NFL, 20 or more teams would have fought to draft him.
Exactly. So listen, and I get it, Titan fans. Y'all are in this position because of what the organization hasn't done. So it's like, man, y'all look at the quarterback position, and if he's not a surefire number one pick, it's like, don't take him because I don't know if y'all can develop him. Don't take him. When in actuality, the guy is worthy of that number one pick if indeed you deem him as a franchise quarterback that has the potential to become an elite quarterback. So draft him because you don't know if moving down to third still gets you Travis Hunter. And I wouldn't touch Abdul Carter.
You know, one texter said, I would trade out with the Giants. So remember, the trade proposed from Mina Kimes to Dane Brugler. Trade from 1 to 3, pick up an extra first next year and a second this year. One texter said, I would trade out with the Giants, then in the second round, take a flyer on Jackson Dart and another receiver.
The Titans can't take flyers.
I was just about to say, I know Robbie Stanley has said this many times. We're done taking flyers on quarterbacks. By the way, Jackson Dart on the beast by Dane Brugler. Quarterback 3, prospect overall, number 49.
They are not in a position, frankly, like this year, frankly, because I don't think
they took a flyer.
I don't even think
on Will Levis.
No,
they?
Will Levis, but even last year when they drafted the big fella Sweat,
they took it was more like a flyer on Malik Willis.
Yeah, more than flyer. Yeah, but you could say, well, because of the weight issue, it was like, man, this is sort of kind of could be. It's high in the second round, and if this is a workout, man, that's another pick down the drain. So to me, okay, that's a flyer. But after that, the Titans are not in a position. And I would say that was, sort of, I don't consider that a flyer, but there are some that said because of the weight, it is a flyer because it may not work out.
No more flyers. Yeah, we're done with flyers.
The big fella showed he can play in college. And if you saw him, you would have known this wouldn't have been a problem for him. But they are not in a position to take a flyer inside of rounds 1, 2, 3, and maybe even 4, depending on where you're taking that fourth pick. Again, I'm gonna repeat this. This team is not in a position, 1, because they don't have a lot of picks, but 2, they're not in a position to take a flyer in rounds 1, 2, or 3. Why do you say that, Derek? because their roster isn't good enough at the bottom just yet. They need to get guys that they know that they can develop and retain. I can't take a flyer and draft a guy in the 3rd round when he's really a 5th or 6th round guy. I'm not taking that flyer.
615-737-1025 will continue to take your reaction on this subject. I also want to get back into what Albert Breer said at Sports Illustrated about what it would take for the Titans to move off of the number 1 pick. We'll do that next. 615-737-1025. The Atlanta Braves country road trip is coming to town and teaming up with the Predators and us at 1025 The Game. Join us at the BetMGM Sports Lounge in Bridgestone Arena next Wednesday, a week from today, April 16th, for a Braves watch party as they take on the Tampa Bay Rays at noon. There will be free giveaways like hats and t-shirts. Plus, you can win autographed baseballs and free Braves tickets to a game of your choice. Also, the first 15 people in the door will win a pair of tickets to that night's game, the Predators season finale against the Dallas Stars. For more details, visit thegamenashville.com/events.
Happy Wednesday, everyone. This is Derek Mason, and you heard me tell you about my good friends over at Cool Springs MD for some time. If you set out to lose weight, chances are it's not your first time setting some type of goal to shed those extra pounds, only to come up disappointment. But I got some solutions, because at Cool Springs MD, Dr. Lodge and his team understands the frustration of this cycle, and that is why they offer a different approach to weight loss. Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and addresses the root cause of weight gain with tailored nutrition, exercise, blood test supplements, and more. They will customize a program specific to you and you only. So connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today. That's MD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
your choices are Cam Ward, the quarterback out of Miami, or trading with the New York Giants. Very important. You're only falling to pick 3. We know that matters a lot in this draft, given the players at the top of the draft. And you are also picking up in the process a 2026 first and a 2025 second. There's no real historical examples that are exactly analogous to this. I was looking at all the top first round trades. The Vic trade came to mind more recently, the Bryce Young trade, but that was to move up from all the way from pick 9 to pick 1. So they picked up a bit more in the process. So you could still get likely, definitely one of Travis Hunter, Albert Carter, and you're getting a second rounder, and you're getting a future first, or do you stay put and take Cam Ward?
And that is tough because I think the Giants being a team that could very easily be picking in the top 10 next year. Theoretically, they'd have a rookie quarterback starting. Well, I guess no, Russell Wilson might be the starter for at least most of the year. That is tough. But I think if I am the Titans, I have a chance to get a quarterback who I think is on a trajectory to be a top 12 quarterback in the league. I think he has that ability. I think he has that talent. He needs to button up some of the drifting in his footwork. He needs to cut down on some of the reckless habits, some of the hero ball, but he's a very loose, instinctive passer. He can be accurate, throws with natural rhythm. I think with the talent and the intangibles and the way that this Titans roster is built, and the fact that we just haven't had a quarterback in so long, I'm going to stick and pick. I'm going to take Cam Ward. I'm going to pass on the trade. The Giants are desperate, but I think we're desperate in Tennessee to get the quarterback right, and I think that could be Cam Ward.
That was Dane Brugler on Mina Kimes' podcast. We've been talking about that a lot today. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. So let's talk about number 1 overall pick trade. So Albert Breer at Sports Illustrated wrote the other day, quote, "It would take an historic offer to move the Titans to trade the pick and pass on Cam Ward." So I'm wondering what would constitute an historic offer. So since the NFL-AFL merger in 1967, there have been 13 instances of the number 1 pick being traded before the NFL draft. So this does not include trades that happened after the draft had already started. So this does not include the Eli Manning, Phillip Rivers trade in 2004, or the John Elway trade in 1983, or the Bo Jackson trade in 1986. This just includes trades that happened before the draft. So the most recent example, as we know, involved the Chicago Bears and the Carolina Panthers in 2023. The Panthers received the number 1 overall pick from the Bears. The Bears received DJ Moore, a 2023 first-round pick, number 9 overall, a 2023 second-round pick, number 61 overall, a 2024 first-round pick, and a 2025 second-round pick. And that was to move from 9 to 1. And the Panthers took Bryce Young. So that was in 2023. Of course, in 2016, the Tennessee Titans traded the number 1 overall pick to the Los Angeles Rams, who took Jared Goff. And the Titans received a 2016 first-round pick, a 2016 second-round pick, another 2016 second-round pick, a 2016 third-round pick, a 2017 first-round pick, and a 2017 third-round pick. And we know that trade helped the Titans enjoy many years of success. Derrick Henry was drafted with picks in that trade. Corey Davis, Jonnu Smith. So a lot of important Titans were a part of that deal between the Titans and the Rams. So when I'm just looking at when I'm just looking at trades that involve the number 1 overall pick, and I'm thinking of an historic offer, I'm wondering what that constitutes. Again, the Bears-Panthers trade in 2023, you're moving from 1 to 9, and the Bears received a top-flight wide receiver in DJ Moore, a 2023 first-round pick, a 2023 second-round pick, a 2024 first-round pick, and a 2025 second-round pick. So, Derek, when you hear it would take an historic offer, and you're looking at history of number 1 pick trades, and there have been 13 of them since 1967. What would an historic offer for the number 1 pick for the Titans this year look like to you? What would it have to involve?
Historic, I guess it would have to be in the ballpark of the Carolina Panthers and Chicago Bears, what they did. Because that was in 16 when they moved out, and obviously the franchise was in a different place. The draft was different, but that was a hell of a haul that you got from moving out of the number 1 spot and all that you got in return. 4 picks within, in that 16 draft within the first 3 first 3 rounds. Then you had a 17 first and a third the next following year,
which became Corey Davis and Jonnu Smith.
So basically in 2 drafts, you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 draft picks within the top 35 players, 36 players, somewhere around there. No, top 6. When is the 3rd round? What do they end as far as players? Let's say top 70 pick. You had 5 picks in the top 70 within those 2 years. Majority of them come in the same year you move out of that pick, out of the first round pick. So with that being said, it would have to be somewhere around the what Carolina gave up to get Caleb Williams. I don't think a team is far enough down and desperate enough to move up that far to get it, because again, and there's nothing wrong with this. Cam Ward isn't ranked high like Caleb Williams. So you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't pull out, everything to try to move up. And I'm not going to even pretend that you should. But it has to be somewhere around here. Because again, if you want to move up to this spot, you're moving up for a reason, and that is to get a quarterback. You really are. So how desperate are you, Giants? And I don't think the Giants want to come off as being a desperate team, even though we saw real time what they did last season. Even with that, I don't think they want to be labeled as a desperate team. So with that being said, because desperate teams end up continuing to be bad franchises. So with saying that, I don't think the Giants would give up that to move up to that spot. Not because they don't like Cam Ward, but because they don't view themselves, I think, as a incompetent, not knowing franchise. They want to get so far removed from that Saquon Barkley stuff as they possibly can. And if they make another move to move up, not given something historic, they will look like that franchise continually.
So Jared likes to point this out as well. The Giants were a part of the off-season Hard Knocks on HBO, which I don't think exists anymore because the Giants didn't come off so great. The whole Saquon.
No other team want to be put in that position.
Yeah. I would love if the Titans did it, but I don't think it's going to happen. So here's a story from ESPN just to explain, because this was a key scene in that show. The New England Patriots had options to trade the number 3 overall pick right up until several hours before the 2024 NFL draft, but it would have taken, quote, something crazy to get them to move out of the spot that eventually netted Drake May. Credit the New York Giants for at least trying. They wanted to make it happen in the worst of ways. It just would have taken a, quote, pretty significant package for the Patriots to even flinch. And by significant, they meant a Ricky Williams-style cupboard of picks. General Manager Joe Schoen called the Patriots at 3:32 p.m. Eastern on the afternoon of the draft's first round and offered the Giants' first-round pick, number 6 overall, a first-rounder in 2025, and another pick this year. It was not even close to enough. So, again, I'm just looking at what Albert Breer is saying. It would take an historic offer. So the first thing I thought of was, okay, I'm going to go back and look at the history of number 1 picks being traded. We mentioned the Bears and the Panthers. We mentioned the Titans and the Rams. Before that, you have to go all the way back to 2001 with the Chargers and the Falcons, when the Falcons moved up to take Michael Vick. And by the way, with the pick that the Chargers received, they took LaDainian Tomlinson. So that actually worked out.
So it worked out for both
franchises. Yes. But to your point about the Panthers and the Bears, that's a big jump from 9 to 1. but a top flight wide receiver, 2 first-round picks, and 2 second-round picks. I remember Charles Robinson going on Robbie and Rex Road a few weeks ago and mentioning that he had heard that it was going to take something like 3 first-round picks from the Giants to move up to number 1 with the Titans. So, to your point, and to a lot of the callers and listeners' points, if Cam Ward is kind of a borderline number 1 overall pick, caliber prospect, why would a team pay all of that to move up?
Okay.
But
no, you're absolutely, you're right. This is what I will say. How many players, and we can probably count them on one hand, and at that particular time, how many players within the last 10 years, don't include their NFL stats now to justify saying, yes, I would, or yes, yeah. How many players within the last 10 years or 15 that you would have given up 3 first-round picks for? There's not many.
no.
There's not. So I want to know where this number came, supposedly, that the Titans are looking for 3 first-round picks. Nobody's giving up 3 first-round picks, really, if there is a bona fide franchise guy there. They're not. Not too many teams can swallow that. Like, man, that is tough. That is 3 first-round picks.
There were reports leading into the Joe Burrow draft that the Dolphins attempted to trade 3 first-round picks to Cincinnati to move up to get Joe
Again,
Burrow.
you may get one out of, and we don't know if that really happened. It could have, but then again, it probably didn't. So again, looking at throughout the history of this league, the last 10, 15 years, if you just take Joe Burrow, because that's been the only guy that this has come out about. Let's just say it's Joe Burrow. Let's just say that that's true. Nobody said that about Trevor Lawrence. Nobody said that about any of these other quarterbacks. So what makes you think now that, like, why would the Titans even put that out, 3 first-round picks? They know they're not getting that. So where did that 3 first? Because that was the first and last time I heard it. So again, where did this? Was it just an arbitrary number? Somebody just pulled it out of their backpack? Oh, 3 first-round picks. Now let's circulate that around. Or let's try to get that circulated around.
So I'm looking back at this 2001 trade between the San Diego Chargers and the Atlanta Falcons. So the Falcons moved up to take Michael Vick, who was excellent for the Falcons until he ran into some dogfighting issues. But the Chargers, for trading the number 1 pick, received wide receiver Tim Dwight, a 2001 first-round pick at number 5. They took LaDainian Tomlinson, a 2021 third-round pick, and a 2000. It says, well, probably 2001. It says 2021. It should be 2001. Tim Dwight, a 2001 first-round pick, which was LaDainian Tomlinson, a 2001 third-round pick, and a 2002 second-round pick to move from 5 to 1.
So again, and this is the guy that many thought was a generational player.
Vic?
Yes.
Yes.
And again, I know the times are different. I get that.
It's been a minute since it was 2001.
But again, I go back to, in the last 10, 15, 20 years, outside of Joe Burrow, how many times have you heard that story? Somebody's giving up, or allegedly somebody will be willing to, give up 3 first round draft picks to move up to number 1, or a team was asking that, like came out asking that. It hasn't been. Now the Joe Burrow thing, okay, whether it happened or not, I don't know. But out of 20 years, it's been one story. Teams, listen, the Titans know that's not going to happen. And teams are not foolish enough to even listen to something like that. Because again, nobody in this draft, and I repeat, nobody is worth 3 first-round picks. Nobody. So where did that come from? Again, the Titans understand, and I think teams out there understand as well. Other teams out there understand as well. This may not be the draft. this not be a draft like it was last year or 2 years ago. The talent may not be as robust up at the top. But when it comes to the quarterback, everybody knows quarterback gets bumped up. You got to pay the quarterback's tax. All these things when it comes to the quarterback is special things that nobody else have to deal with, endure, or benefit from. It's just the quarterback. So when you have a guy that's ranked 8th overall, basically a consensus on average, and maybe if you put some more of them together, he ended up being ranked as 7th overall on your big board, and he's the number 1 quarterback. Why shouldn't he be drafted number 1 overall? That's my question. Don't just tell me because and this is what I want people to do. Seriously. Especially people on radio or television. Give me other reasons beside just the same stuff you've been regurgitating over and over and over again. Give me something new. Like, give me some more tangible things, because some of the things y'all are saying, y'all say the same things about the quarterbacks that were drafted and have success now. Whether it was Patrick Mahomes, he ain't going to be able to throw those sidearms. He can't throw a platform like that in the NFL. He can't do that. He's going to have to change his mechanics. You have to do this. What happened? He ain't changed a damn thing. And he is what? The best quarterback and he may be the best quarterback ever. Okay, so some of these same things y'all are saying about Cam Ward, y'all said about everybody, even Caleb Williams, even Jaden Daniels, Drake May. Y'all said the same stuff about every quarterback. What makes Cam Ward any different that he shouldn't be worthy of the number 1 pick?
615-737-1025. Why don't you answer that question for Derek at 615-737-1025? And while you're doing that, also text in the keyword Jason, Jason, to 615-737-1025 and receive a link to sign up for a chance to win all-inclusive tickets to the Eurostone Club at Bridgestone Arena to see Jason Aldean, plus a chance to win $1,000 cash. D. Maceman, Ginendonic, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Stillman and Company coming up next. You can hear me moderating Jared versus Joe at 5 o'clock. I have to come up with some questions that I know will cause a lot of yelling. I think I've got a couple, but I've got a few hours to plan it. So I will be stepping in to moderate Jared versus Joe. You can also catch me right after Stillman and Company on Preds Insiders with Nick Keizer. Nick Keezer's final edition of Preds Insiders. If you missed it, Nick Keizer will be leaving us this week. He's off to do bigger and better things. We will miss young Keizer around here. Let's go to Angie on our phone line, driven by Wilson County, Hyundai.com. Angie, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Yes, I am 100% behind Derek Mason. I think the Titans need a quarterback. You've got to draft according to need. Granted, we have a lot of needs. Number one, though, is the quarterback. I think Cam has a lot of qualities that are going to expand and continue to grow. He has those basic qualities. He's hardworking. He's a great team player. He has football smarts. He has decent size. So 100% people are crazy to be talking about us passing on Cam Ward. We would just watch him with another team do wonderful things. All right, Derek, I'm in your corner 100%. You take care.
Thanks, Angie.
Thank you. Oh, me, Angie. Look, okay, I want to say something.
What were you about to say?
Don't worry about it. We'll tell you later.
It's a joke between me.
Yeah, we'll tell you in a minute.
Okay.
Okay, I'm about to say something right here. And I'm just going to give you weakness of said player. I'm not going to tell you who it is or the year.
You're listing the weaknesses of a quarterback.
Of a quarterback.
Okay.
Polar opposite seasons in 18 and 19. But here's some more weaknesses. A level of scheme fit is necessary. Below average arm strength and average release quickness. Tend to work into more condensed areas of the field. Steep drop in accuracy or intermediate throws outside the numbers. They're basically saying he can't make the throws, deep throws outside the numbers. Requires top-notch timing for out-breaking throws as a pro. Saw nose of ball dive on some throws, not some throws. Now, what do you classify as some throws? Maybe 2 or 3? He didn't say. Field side ball. So spotty high-low combo throws against lone boundary cornerbacks when they play it low to high. Early issues handling the defense, this particular defense's disguised blitz package. Scheme created clearer reads and easier one-on-one throws. Took sacks he didn't need to take. Now, I would say that last part has been pretty much maybe the same, and it might not all be his fault, but he's been sacked so many times, you don't know what's his fault or what's not his fault. But you know what player that was?
Who was that?
One, Joe Burrow. And that was Joe Burrow, who was the number 1 pick in the draft. That was and those are
whose scouting report was that?
This was the NFL scouting report.
The NFL.com.
Yeah, I'm on the NFL.com scouting report. So the one thing I say has been true is the last one that I said, is the sacks. And now, is that because the line is just that bad, or is he taking too many sacks because he's holding on to the ball? But these are the things that they said about Joe Burrow, who one team supposedly was willing to give up 3, not 1, not 2, but 3, LeBron James, 3 first-round picks. But they had this to say about him. So again, people, I understand, you may be a little bit hesitant because of some of the things that have happened with the franchise over the years, and I get it. All valid. But when you have a guy, once again, and y'all got to tell me more than, y'all got to give me some detailed stuff that,
all right,
that
so
he
you
just
all have
doesn't
the
do.
homework assignment for tomorrow's show.
Because even with Joe Burrow, they've said all these things, and they're sharing their things about Cam Ward. Maybe not to this extent. I ain't hear all of this, but he does have his warts. Every quarterback does. But even with his few warts, what can you tell me outside of that? And he's still, and I will repeat, he's still a top 8 prospect in all of 2025 draft eligible individuals. He's number 8, and he's the number 1 quarterback in this year's draft. And when I say number 1, I don't mean, oh, they think he's going to be a late round draft pick, meaning late first round. No, he's a top 8 pick.
Nick and Joel on our text line are convinced that Angie was Amy Adams Strunk calling him.
Hey, that's why
Angie, Amy.
Yeah, I mean,
it's kind of close. We appreciate you calling, Angie. If you are indeed Amy Adams Strunk, we're blessed that you called our program and that you listen. I want to get out of here on this text from Justin from Greenbrier. I'll let Derek respond before we head out for the day. Justin says, if the Titans were sold lock, stock, and barrel on Cam Ward, why would they float out there that they would be willing to trade the pick? They don't want to be stuck drafting him. So they say they're willing to trade, but it's going to take a haul to get it. They put that out there because they are hoping that one of these other teams, Browns, Giants, Saints, are convinced Ward is their answer at quarterback. I don't want him as our quarterback. I didn't want Will Levis as our quarterback either. I just don't feel like he is the answer.
Why is it that the Titans got to play the game the way y'all think they should play it? Why? No, that's a serious question. Even I should ask myself that question too when it comes to the Titans with certain situations that we discuss. But in this particular instance, why is it that now the Titans got to play the game that everybody wants them to play? Just because they haven't definitively said, and the arrow is pointing more to them drafting Cam Ward than not, but just because they haven't definitively come out and said, hey, everybody, stop, everybody, stop. We are drafting Cam Ward. Just because they haven't did that, that means they're not really sold on the guy. Again, your GM supreme ruler of football. He wasn't going to go to the pro day. The head coach wasn't at the pro day. I think he went to show respect. Let me tell them what we're thinking as an organization. We love your guys, but this is going to be our guy. And yeah, I want to watch Shedeur, but I want to watch these other guys because we may draft either later. Jim Horn Jr., Sheffield or Sherfield. Those guys are good players. So I can't go there and watch them as well. I've seen enough. I've seen Shedeur. We're not going to draft Shedeur. But I can draft other players on this campus, can I? On this team that is coming out. Okay, but as the supreme ruler of football, I'm going to go there to show respect. Like, this is our guy. All right, Prime, like, all right, fine. We get it. You ain't heard nothing come out of their camp. But then again, they could draft Shedeur Sanders. You just never know. But the arrow is pointing toward Cam Ward. What's wrong with that the Titans, just because the Titans hadn't come out and said, hey, everybody, we're drafting Cam Ward, does that make it wrong? I don't know.
Well, you all have some homework to do.
Yes.
Derek Mason has given you some homework.
But I hate homework.
I do too.
Just a little homework.
But I try to get,
shout out Arthur.
But I try to, because we got a lot of listeners. We got listeners that are here every single day.
Yes.
And I want them to feel as if they're a part of what we're doing. So,
absolutely.
When they call, I would like to hear, because it may change what I'm thinking. I don't know. I want to hear more than just the surface stuff.
We'll pick this back up tomorrow. Thank you so much for all of your interaction. It was wonderful. Stillman & Company coming up next.
Be loved, love on your people. Have a safe, blessed, and wonderful Wednesday. And when I say love on your people, I'm talking about everybody, okay? Because everybody's your people, all right? So have a blessed day, a wonderful day. Peace.